Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here with day number 21 of my 31 Days of Horror. We're getting so close to the end. If you've been following along with this series, hopefully you guys have been enjoying it so far. We just got that little bit more to go. Today's movie is one only from last year, though it's this indie low budget film, so I would have no issue if you haven't heard of it before. Today's movie is The Third Saturday in October. It's this one down the bottom here. I got it here with part 5. They're both from last year. They're throwbacks to, classic 80s slashes and everything. If you're looking at this right now, you might be wondering, okay, what's up with this franchise? You got part 1 and part 5. There actually is no part 2, 3, or 4. I think the whole concept was meant to be, as I said, a throwback to 80s slashes. They're both from 2022. And you're actually meant to watch part 5 before you watch part 1. It's like stumbling across one of those later sequels in a slasher franchise, and then you go back and watch the first one to see where it started. I believe that was the whole concept behind it, but I've seen them both before, so I had no problem going back and watching the first one first. But either way, before I get into my thoughts of this movie, we'll quickly go into the plot. It's pretty simple. Takes place in 1979. There was this killer named Zachariah Harding, killed all these people. He's finally being put to death in the electric chair, though he is kind of like your Michael Myers. He's not completely human, so he doesn't die, and he escapes, and now he's in this town. I believe it's called like Hackenfield or something like that. I can't remember the name of the town, and he's going around killing people on the third Saturday of October. And, you got these people trying to find him and what have you. Pretty basic story. Let's get into my thoughts of the third Saturday in October. I forgot to say this in my introduction, but the reason why I decided to watch the third Saturday in October on today, day number 21, is because today actually is the third Saturday in October. I just thought it made sense. I mean, for Friday the 13th, I watched Friday the 13th, so I thought, why not do it again? But either way, getting into my thoughts of this movie. Sometimes when a film is trying to be a throwback to, in this case, the 80s/late 70s, it can sometimes put itself into becoming a gimmick rather than actually making a pretty solid movie. And unfortunately, I feel like that's the case with this one. It falls into the territory of being more of a gimmick. And at moments, it's fun, it feels very 80s/late 70s, and there's lots of tropes of slasher films and horror movies of that time, which can be fun. But for the most part, as I said, I just feel like it's more of a gimmick and isn't maybe the execution they wanted or were trying to get, at least in my opinion. This movie is very inspired by films like Halloween and Friday the 13th, for example, not just in its story, but also its killer, Jack Harding. As I said, Halloween and Friday the 13th, to me, were the most two obvious comparisons. The introduction to this movie screamed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was like, yep, that's TCM. It has like the words rolling over, the narration over the top. I'm like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre straight away. So it has lots of inspirations and callbacks to movies of the times that this film is trying to look like. But as I said, unfortunately to me, it falls into more so gimmick territory rather than being an actual solid movie to watch. Now, this is a movie with a lot of characters, and what I mean by that is we have our leads who we're following around for majority of the movie, but we also have a lot of secondary and background characters coming in and out and floating through scenes and whatever. But there is no character in this movie that I really care for or came to be attached to. The characters I just found in this movie to be really weak, and I'll expand on that in a second. There's this group of 4 characters who come from out of town. They're staying with one of the characters' uncles. They're sort of just these loud, outgoing people, like doing drugs and partying and whatever. I found them to be some of the most annoying characters I've seen in a movie in a fucking long time. Just everything that they do, they thought they were funny, and I'm not sure if they were meant to be obnoxious. I feel like they were kind of meant to be funny, but they weren't. They started like meowing like cats all the time. That was like their inside running joke, and if you've seen the movie, you gotta know what I'm talking about, because they wouldn't shut the fuck up. 4 of the most annoying characters I've seen in a long time. They were like making me cringe, they were that bad. But even our main characters and our characters that we're following around, I don't really care for them. Even our villain in this movie, Jack Harding, I don't really see him gaining any traction as a horror villain. We have Art the Clown, who came up in the indie scene, and now he's more well known in the mainstream as a horror icon. I don't see the same happening for Jack Harding. He's just not in this movie a lot. Maybe if they did more the third Saturday in October movies, maybe if they filled in the gaps and did parts 2, 3, and 4, maybe he might shine a bit more in those movies or whatever. But in this one, he's just not in it a lot. There's not a lot of charisma or anything, and I know there are a lot of horror icons that don't speak, but just something about him wasn't really drawing me in. He's very inspired by, like I mentioned before, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, but he just also lacks a lot. His presence wasn't really there. And as I said, his appearances in this movie are very spaced out. The kills get better as they go. They start off pretty basic, but then we get a chainsaw kill, whatever these are called, hedging shears. You get a nice slice across the neck. The kills get better as they go along, but none of the characters I really cared for in this movie either. So I'm just going to wrap up my review here. As I said, a pretty basic movie. You would have got that just from my plot description, but you can also imagine it was done on purpose, because as I said, it's meant to be a throwback to slashers of the 80s and late 70s, and a lot of them were very basic also. Like, look at a classic like Halloween. As much as it's a great movie, it's a fantastic movie, it is very basic, and I feel like a lot of people can't deny that, but it is a very simple movie, but I feel like it just doesn't do well with its execution. As I said, I feel like it falls more into being a gimmick rather than being an actual solid watch, so I'm going to give the third Saturday in October a 5 out of 10. Just very right in the middle. By all means, it's watchable. If they did more of these movies just to sort of fill in the gap, or maybe make one further down the track, like a part 9 or something, I probably would check it out. From what I remember, I did like part 5 a bit more. As I said, it's meant to replicate finding one of those later in the franchise slasher sequels, so it's a bit more fun, it's a bit more goofy and everything. I'm pretty sure I remembered liking part 5 more, so maybe if they did as I said, another one later down the track, I might like it more. But for now, the first one is a 5 out of 10. If you have seen this movie, let me know your thoughts of it in the comments below, guys. And again, I just want to show my appreciation for everyone who has been following along through my 31 days of horror. I know it can be a little bit jarring sometimes. I've got people that I watch on YouTube as well who do the 31 days of horror, and sometimes you're almost getting burnt out just watching them as well. But I appreciate everyone who's followed along, or even just skipped a few days, or maybe this might be the first episode you're tuning into, but I appreciate it, guys. And we still got a few more days to go, but thank you for joining me for day number 21, and I'll see you tomorrow for day number 22. Peace, guys.